That'd be great.
Or does everybody have a copy of the agenda?
I
Yeah.
do.
Somewhere.
Because I can screen share one if you want.
I have one. Do people want it up on the screen?
How about this as a screen share?
I mean, the first thing that we have to do in order of the agenda is to review the minutes from the meeting October 20th.
Which I can screen share if you want.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll get myself together here and I'll do that. Can you all see it?
Yes.
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 Excellent. Tell me if and when you want me to scroll down.
Thank you, Susan.
Is everyone complete with it?
Yes.
Yes.
Fabulous.
Okay. Can I make a motion to approve? Or I do make a motion to approve.
I second the motion.
Everybody okay with that? All in favor of
Yes.
this? Okay.
Yes.
Great. The second order of business is the Ethics Board new member recommendation. We have had someone put themselves forward, Amy Linker. Jacob has her materials and has told me he's hopeful. Jacob, please feel free to correct here, that the board will be able to review that in their January meeting. I think it's scheduled for January 11th. And what I would suggest is that we try to make our next meeting after that, you know, soon after that, but so that whoever is the new member doesn't get any further behind. Were there other updates that people had or suggestions about new members? Because we are vacant a seat and going into a new third party complaint. I think it'd be a really important to, and just in general, to have the fifth seat filled so that we're not going into any new projects or new year with 4. Jacob, do you want to correct anything there?
No, that was all accurate. I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to fill the seat whenever we do reorganization appointments, and hopefully the first meeting of January.
How do you spell her last name?
It's Linker.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
She's
Thank
a curator at the Hessel Museum in Bard. She doesn't, you know, she's, as a person who's also a registrar, she's responsible all the time for super detail oriented
Yes.
type of work, and doesn't have any you know, as I could see, any compromising aspects of her life, if there were one, or job or anything like that. Really lovely person and smart and whatnot.
Sounds great. Sounds good.
Yeah, she's very civically involved. She's on the diversity initiative at the school, and you know, she's great, I think. I think she'll be a really good fit and overall just really responsible, has a couple of children in the school district, anyway. But we can, also can we circulate her material to the board, Jacob? Or I
think-
haven't seen it, but
Yeah, the board has her resume and letter of interest. So that was shared with everybody. We had those materials for a meeting either in November maybe or October. It's been a couple of meetings, but we had those. So the board should be familiar with those, with the exception of Julia, who won't unless she's reviewed the materials from the previous meeting. She won't have them until January, but everybody else should have been able to review that by now.
okay. Well, thank you, Jacob, for seeing to that. That's helpful. And then the next item is the annual training. So we're fortunate to have the town lawyer here. Hello. And we had discussed earlier some form of training, and I had passed along some materials that she'd already sent to us way back when, kind of August, September. Christine, is there a date we should shoot for? I mean, I think we were waiting for the new member to get to have everybody up to speed.
Chris, you're muted.
Thank you. I saw that you were talking about doing it at the beginning of the year, which I think makes sense because you have new appointments in January. So it would be appropriate to hold a training session in the early part of the year so that people who are coming on to these boards would have an opportunity to sit through that. And if you can do it through Zoom as a training session, maybe that would be the most accessible opportunity rather than trying to get everybody down to the town hall. It might be a vehicle that makes it easier for people to participate. You'll have to just pick a time when you'll have to look at the town calendar and pick a time and a date when none of the other boards are meeting, right? You don't necessarily have to have a conflict with the space in town hall, but you want people to be able to attend, so, right?
Yes.
But like, you don't have to worry about court conflicts because, they have their own ethics rules, so you don't need to worry about them. The judges, I mean, so, right.
Great. Okay. So I think once we get the new member solidified, then we'll go ahead and try to make it as soon as possible, and we'll whenever's convenient for you. Yeah.
So you want me to participate and sort of work through the training session? Is that what you're thinking? And
I think
participate?
that would be for the best, just because your advice has been pretty invaluable to us, and because even the bylaws say, like, takes direction from town attorney. So if you would be free, I know it's, I don't want to impose, but if you're free, I think it would be great if you
Sure.
could. Because some of that language we've had questions about, and I just don't feel that I have the legal training to answer all the questions of my
Sure.
own. Great.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
And mostly what we would, this is an initial training, so we would mostly trying to make sure that everybody's aware of the ethics code and has a chance to go through it a little bit and understands that there are both state requirements and our ethics code requirements that they have to be aware of. So it's more bringing awareness to the requirements, right? So
I ask a question that relates to that. In our ethics code, section 1313B indicates that the town board shall transmit to the officers and employees in a form suitable for distribution copies of those provisions of this chapter, which the ethics board deems necessary for distribution. So how carefully do we adhere to that, in a sense that does every single officer and employee get a copy of the code? And
So I believe that at least with respect to employees that when they're brought on, I believe Anne makes sure that as part of giving them the handbook, the town has a handbook that they
Yes.
also get copies of the ethics code. I don't know what the process has been in terms of the new board appointees, so it would be well to make sure that they all get a copy of this by email when they're, appointed with their letter of appointment. They may, I just haven't seen that lately, so.
In fact, this goes on to say that the officer or employee would sign a receipt of sending this into a file with I guess it's with the town clerk. Yes, it does
Right.
specifically say that that's part of the process of being
So maybe
hired
one of
or-
you would like to sit and talk with the town clerk at an opportune time, maybe in January would be a good time to do that as new appointments are coming on. And just because she's relatively new as well, and find out if this is part of the process. And if it hasn't been lately, then have them reinitiate that process and make sure those are going out to all the board
Yeah.
members.
For example, Jacob, since you are the town board representative or liaison, did that happen with you? As you might recall?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I know that whenever I started on the board, I had the handbook, the ethics code, and the sexual harassment training. I think it was those three things that I had to review and then sign to say that I reviewed. So it's my understanding that that has happened at least, for me, right? and I assume it happened for other people who started around the same time.
Yes.
I think that sorry, I need to cough really. I think that part of it was like who actually falls into those categories, and there were certain boards that were included there, including the planning board and I think the ethics board. I think those were two. There might have been a couple of others that are considered to be required under that.
Public officers, so that would be like the zoning board of appeals,
Yes.
the planning board, and this board, and they only meet once a year, but the Board of Assessment Review would also be in that category. So people who are required to take an oath of office as part of entering onto the duties of their position.
Yes.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be like everybody who's appointed to say like the Economic Development Committee or
Right.
The
Right.
Conservation Advisory Council or anything like that. But like Chris said, people will take an oath.
Thanks, Gal. Those,
Well, thank you.
good point. They're also up on the website. We can talk about it as we get further into the meeting, but I have found it useful when I'm getting queries to my wonderful ethics board chair email to send them and say, this is, please read the code of ethics that's here, because some of what has been asked of us is just far, far beyond the scope of what we do. So it's good. That's a great point. Okay. Anything else on that training? We'll definitely follow up.
At this point, do we know the format of it, or you mentioned Zoom, but other than that, do we know anything about the format yet, or would that be discussed, or would that be up to Christine, for example? How would it be presented?
We usually do this for about an hour because that's about the amount of time that people will be able to focus. And we usually have a series of materials which would include the code of ethics, but sometimes maybe a little outline. And then what we usually would try to do is go through the basics of the requirements and then maybe some samples. I tend not to do specific questions because people get really into specifics of a particular fact situation, and that's maybe not something we want to do in a training session, but separately. So we usually try to take samples of situations, right, and talk about those.
Thanks, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In fact, Sal, maybe you and I should talk because you're the teacher in the room, and maybe I should do my materials and have you lead us.
Well, I don't know about that.
We're going to turn you into the prime ethics teacher because that's what your background is, right?
Well, We'll see.
Yes, yes. I bet you, yeah.
We're pulling you out of retirement.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so the next order of business is an executive session for the review of a formal complaint filed December 9th. I do have one question about these executive sessions, which is we go in when there's a complaint to keep things confidential. At those executive sessions, can we consult with Chris?
Oh, yes. In fact, you can consult with, you can invite into an executive session anybody that you feel is necessary, but of course, then you do have to be concerned about confidentiality issues. So but certainly you can also, there is also another form of private session, which is called an attorney-client session. It's not the same as an executive session. And the executive session is for you to talk to one another and deliberate about decision-making. You can also, have a pause and have an attorney-client session where you ask me questions and I give you, legal advice about different questions that you might have, not to tell you how to make your decision, but to give you, help you with analysis or questions of law, right? So then you can go back to your executive session and continue with your deliberation, right?
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we go into executive session. I think I would just like to let you know, Chris, that I think it's likely that we will also ask for an attorney-client session soon thereafter. But first, maybe we go into executive. Yes, does that?
But you can invite me to executive session.
Oh,
Yeah.
and also, so why don't we
Yes.
just, I make a motion to invite Chris to the executive session and to go into said executive session. Do I have a second?
And if I could, Brenda,
Yes.
I'm going to remind you that when you move to go into executive session, what you need to say is what the purpose of the executive session is, because the open meetings law requires that you state the purpose. And Susan, you will make sure that the minutes reflect the purpose of the executive session.
That's what I'm doing. Yep.
You've done a very good job in your minutes of saying what you're going to do. I mean, your agenda. We'll talk about that later, but you can use this language for review of a formal complaint filed on such a date. And I think you're going to also review the recommendations regarding a complaint. You may want to refer in the future to the complaint numbers just so that you have a way of identifying them. So 2021-2 and then 2021-1. So you're going to discuss both of those complaints in the executive session. Does that make sense?
Yes. So
Yes.
should I now say that language?
Yeah.
Wait, can I just
Brenda
ask,
write-
can you make the
Yes.
motion, wait, can you make the motion for both executive sessions at once?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
I think you
Okay.
can.
So I'm making a motion to move into executive session to discuss complaints 2021-1 and 2021-2.
I'll
se-
second it. Oh, sorry, Sal.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. That's fine.
Jacob, do you think you can move us into a room?
Yes, it seemed like everybody was in favor of that, so I'm going to make a breakout
Oh,
room.
all
that
in favor?
includes-
Yes, I thought I heard it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So I'm gonna make
We are all back here with Jacob. Susan?
Yes. I would like to make a motion to state that we found no reasonable cause to believe that a violation has occurred in the matter of 2021-2.
So that's a motion to vote.
Yes, to vote that there is no reasonable cause to believe that a violation has occurred in the matter of 2021-2.
I second that motion. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we now have the vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to take a roll call, Susan?
Oh, I see. Thank you very much. Brenda,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Susan, yes.
I would also like to make a motion. So I make a motion to vote to approve an amended determination regarding complaint 2021-1.
Second,
And Susan, can you take a roll? And you can, no?
I was just ready.
I know.
I'm being secretary. Okay. Brenda,
Yes.
Sal,
yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Susan, yes.
Thank you. So the final agenda item is to set our next meeting. As we discussed earlier, I think it would be ideal, if possible, and looking forward to the ethics training, if we could set that meeting after, but soon after, January 11th. We had said before, I believe, that Wednesdays do generally work with the calendar of the other town boards at this time. So I did want to propose January 19th from 5 to 6 or 5 on. Does that work? Can we double check the town calendar, or Jacob, do you already have it all handy?
Let me pull it up really quickly, but I would assume that we should be fine, but I'll double check.
January, what date did, oh, January 19th. Yes, that's sorry. Do we need to determine now if it will be in person or Zoom, or we'll do it?
I think we can do it in the announcement.
But,
When-
you know, yes, in a while.
Right, so Susan, I think that the rule will be, as of now, it would have to be in person unless there's a further determination by the state
Yeah.
that allows us to continue with Zoom. So you may, as a board, make a decision that you'd like to continue with Zoom unless it's prohibited by the state law. Does that make sense?
Yes. So we have to give the public at least a week notice before of
Yeah, I mean, the meeting, right, the meeting notice should go up now as soon as you set the schedule. And then if you, the Zoom link or whatever, whatever you're using to invite people can go up a week ahead of time, right? Once we know what's going on in January, I don't know, so.
right.
So the only thing that's happening on that date is a water board meeting at 7 o'clock. So having this meeting at the normal time of 5 would not conflict with anything that's currently on the calendar.
Good.
Wonderful. Okay, well, let's schedule that. And Susan, thanks. I know that you've borne a lot of the work this year as secretary. If you could send that along to the clerk, that would be fantastic, so they can
Yes, I
announce
will.
it.
With no determination of Zoom or in person, just that that's the date of the meeting, and closer to the meeting, we'll know.
That sounds good. Is there any other new business or any other business that we need to address? Then I make a motion for us to end the meeting.
Second,
Sal, you beat me.
got you while you were writing, Susan.
I approve.
Okay.
Okay, we are all in favor.